Happy was recorded by High Tension first, but you guys took it to #1 on the R&B charts. What was that feeling like, the first time you hear it on the radio or you guys get that Billboard notice that you guys had a #1 hit? What was that feeling like?
It's surreal, you know what I mean? Because again, as a little boy, wanting to, make it in the music industry and love to sing. I hadn't planned on writing. I hadn't planned on producing, just singing alone. It's surreal because you're getting phone calls from family all over the country. You know what I mean? I just heard your song on the radio. Or people could be in their living room and have the TV on, and all of a sudden my face, probably just as big as I could see it here, singing Happy. You know what I mean? And it was mind blowing.
Welcome back to another edition of On the Groove Line. And as you can see, I have a very special guest. This gentleman has been in the music business for over 40 years. He was the lead singer and producer for the hit group Surface, and he has released a new run of tribute singles and Christmas songs that we're going to get into today. It is our honor and privilege to have Mr. Bernard Jackson taking this ride with us on the Groove Line. Bernard, how you doing today?
I'm good, man. How are you?
I'm great. So thank you for coming along. So you've released a couple of tribute songs to you've done What's Going On and Mercy Mercy Me by Marvin, Can't Get Enough of Your Love Babe by Barry White, and Practice What You Preach as well. So what about those two legends what inspired you to cover those two songs, and how those two legends inspired your path in the music business?
Well, to be honest with you, man, I grew up with all the greats and listening to the Barrys, the Marvins, the Stevies, the Michaels, the Luthers, the Stylists, the Earth, Wind and Fires, the Nat King Coles, the Johnny Mathis, the Frank Sinatras, the Elvis Presley. And I've actually been spending a whole lot of time going back and doing what, a lot of artists were doing back in the day, which they were all doing the same songs and they had huge catalogs. So I've been building for a number of years now. And it just so happens those are the few that we dropped recently, but we've got a lot more. I love Barry White. And of course, people wouldn't be expecting me to do that. And the funny thing is that I'm enjoying actually having fun, because a lot of folks don't know that I'm actually capable of actually doing these songs in the image of the artist, not doing it like the guy from Surface, but doing it more with their inflictions and pretty much honoring their styles. So that's actually fun for me. So I've been having a lot of fun and learning a lot too about each artist. I mean, I'm even doing country western artists, so I'm going crazy. Actually, having a lot of fun and trying to honor the greats along the way.
And you mentioned having fun. Just when you've been in music as long as you have, just how important is it to still be able to, get up every day, having fun, enjoying, the creative process, writing a song, going to the studio, playing your instruments. Just how important is it for, because I've talked to Michael Cooper of Confunction. He's still having fun. Keith Kilgore, the Blackbirds, has been on here. They're still touring. Just how important is it for you guys, as you, build your years in this industry to still be in love with the industry, as it were?
Yeah, the funny thing, man, it's like for myself, when you're in this world of music, it's almost like time stands still. You know what I mean? What's most important, I believe, as an artist, is to stay on top of your craft. To work on your craft all the time, and it's almost like I said, you're in another world and time stands still. So it's like it just I don't know, how do I say it? It's almost like it's always an adventure. You know what I mean? It's always an adventure once you put them headphones on and you turn that mic on and you start, expressing, whatever, if it's new stuff or even old stuff. It's like, you can pick up an old, Marvin Gaye song and you can remember the vibe back when you first heard it and stuff like that. We're all artists. And so for me, that's funny, is that even when I'm actually, live or doing some of my Surface stuff, you said 40 years. that sounds like a long time. And I almost don't realize that that much time is going by. You know what I mean? So I'm like,
Right.
I'm stuck in this space, where, you know, specifically, if when you open your mouth and it still sounds like that guy, and I talk like that, um, it's like wild, actually. You know what I mean? And fun.
So let's talk about the Surface Days. You, David Townsend, and Dave Conley, you
Hmm.
guys started off as a songwriting trio, if I'm not mistaken. How did that, develop into Surface? Because I did an episode about the new edition Offer Love album, and I realized you guys wrote a song on there called "Let's Be Friends," and that's one of my favorite songs on the album. And I was like, wow.
Nice.
I was
Yeah.
like, wow. I was like, wow. The Surface guys wrote that. So what inspired you guys to sort of say, okay, we can, do our own thing as opposed to just being in the background of songwriters?
Well, it just so happened to work out that way because when I met David Townsend in my hometown of Stamford, Connecticut, um, his uncle is married was married to my godmother. Wait a minute, no, his aunt was married to my godfather,
Mm-hmm.
and that's how I actually met him in my hometown while he was in between touring with the Ozzy Brothers. Of course, I find out that, in my eyes, like a star is in town. I got to meet this cat. And when I met him, we just clicked instantly. And he also realized what I was doing around town in regards to performing and stuff like that. And he also found out that I could write really well. Uh, and he wanted to bring me down to meet his partner, David Pitt Conley. And that's kind of how we hooked up just to see, I'm just going down to meet David Pitt Conley in Jersey, uh, just to listen to some of the tracks. They had a lot of music, but they didn't have finished product. And so I went down there just to see what music they had and see whether or not I can contribute in any type of way. And Happy was one of the first songs that came out of those meetings when we got together for the first time. Um, uh, I just heard a different vibe that was really cool, different than stuff that I was coming up with myself. It was kind of easy for me to write to it. It was different, and I could kind of do my own thing. Because growing up, I was singing everybody's stuff. I was into like 17 different bands. You know what I mean? So I was doing Marvin Gaye, Michael Jackson, Stylish, Earth, Wind and Fire, you know, the Whispers and the OJs and the Moments, and we were doing all the popular music back in the 80s, and that's when there were like big bands and stuff. When I say big bands, meaning 12, 13 people in a band, not the horns and the strings, all that stuff. So what happened was they had a song out called "Falling in Love," which was a hit in New York and a few places by the original Surface, which was David Conley and a young lady named Karen Copeland. Okay, and so I love that track. I love that song, and so after they had a couple of local hits, um, the fact that we had started getting together, we had started writing songs and stuff together. Uh, Townsend and myself were going to have our own group. Okay, it wasn't going to be with Surface, but we had lost, or Karen Copeland had passed away,
Oh, wow.
and at that point, I love Surface, and how do you kind of, what do you do when we actually found out that the three of us really work well together, and ultimately I'm like, we're basically like, why don't we just become Surface? And that's kind of how you know, we actually decided to go and try to look for a deal. But in the meantime, we were writing a lot of songs and putting together a lot of songs so that we would have something to possibly present to someone. Also, I don't know how many people know that David Townsend's dad is Ed Townsend. And Ed Townsend, he wrote and produced the song "Let's Get It On" with Marvin Gaye.
I
Okay,
knew.
so
Okay, I knew that name sounded familiar. I couldn't
yeah,
picture it.
yeah.
Wow.
And he had a big hit called "For Your Love," oh, I would do anything. That's one of his big hits. I think he's one of the first brothers on the Ed Sullivan Show singing that song and
Wow.
killing it. You could probably see it on YouTube if you look for it. For Your Love with Ed Townsend, amazing. Okay, and so after we had pretty much woodshed and put together like 9 albums worth of music, we Townsend and myself flew out to Los Angeles. We had friends in Los Angeles. His dad was out there too, and our goal was to try to get a record deal. So we didn't set out to be songwriters, only first. And even when we did, I think one of the first songs that actually got published, David Connolly flew to London and produced a group out there on the song Happy. And he comes back home after 3 weeks. We don't even know what he's doing because he's kind of running around. And he comes back with an album that a group called High Tension actually recorded Happy, before we actually did it for real. And that was a surprise to us, but that kind of just opened things up to like, we got something here. We know we have something here. And, then our goal was ultimately to try to get a record deal. And so Townsend and myself flew out to Los Angeles, and our goal was to stay in Los Angeles until we got a deal. You know what I mean? And knock on doors, try to get management, talk to his dad and look for pointers to try to help us out.
When you guys were looking for your deal in like 84, 85, 86, there's like bands are downsizing, hip hop is starting to, make a wave. There's, people aren't playing as many live instruments as they were before. So I was asking, were you guys at all concerned about the changes in music, or were you guys confident in your abilities to go out there and be surfers?
Yeah, we were very, very confident. I was super confident. I was 27 and I stopped at 27, mind you. I was 27, that's it. We knew that we had something. We knew that we had something special. We knew it was different, but we knew that it definitely, if it touched us, we feel like it'll touch others. You know what I mean?
Right.
And the fact of the matter is, David Connolly was running around and knocking on doors at the same time, and he ended up knocking on EMI Music Publishing Company. And EMI heard some of our stuff and realized that we also were good at songwriting and stuff. And we actually got a writer's deal. That's how that came about. And with that writer's deal, if someone says, "Oh, we're looking for a song for New Edition," or "We're looking for a song for Aretha Franklin," "We're looking for a song for Jermaine," I can sing like them. I hear their voices in my head. That means I could actually write and hear how they would sound singing it, because I could sing it like them. And so we were super confident, and we actually wrote a song for a song that's actually was on our first album too, for Sister Sledge. So we actually signed 2 songs, and then it was on, because I was actually able to quit a job, and I was basically living off of the music, and all I was doing is writing. All of us were just writing. I actually moved from Connecticut and moved to Jersey, and we all lived in the same house. And so we were going in, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And the fact that, the publishing company were motivated and they believed as well. It was just, it's almost like a dream come true. And it wasn't a lot of money. Let's not get it twisted. It wasn't a lot of money, but I didn't have to work. So guess what? Perfect. Let's go.
And you mentioned that Happy was recorded by High Tension first, but you guys took it to #1 on the R&B charts. What was that feeling like? The first time you hear it on the radio, or you guys get that Billboard notice that you guys had a #1 hit. What was that feeling like?
Right, man. It's surreal. You know what I mean? Because again, as a little boy, wanting to, make it in the music industry and love to sing. I hadn't planned on writing. I hadn't planned on producing, just singing alone. It's surreal because you're getting phone calls from family all over the country. You know what I mean? I just heard your song on the radio. Or people could be in their living room and have the TV on, and all of a sudden my face, probably just as big as I could see it here, singing Happy. You know what I mean? And it was mind blowing. So it was a dream come true, because that's what it's all about. When you have a dream and you chase that dream and it actually comes true, it doesn't get any better than that.
Yeah, and I want to jump into the Second Wave album because that was the album that you guys had three number one hits in the same year. And
Mhm.
1989 wasn't no joke. I mean, we had a New Edition, we had Bobby Brown, Babyface had a release Tender Lover. Like the R&B scene in '89 was super competitive, and you
Mhm.
guys had three number one hits. There was a "Shower Me with Your Love," "You Are Everything," and was it "Closer Than Friends"?
Yeah, closer than friends. Yeah, yeah, it was closer than friends.
Yeah,
Yep.
you guys had three number ones in one year. There are some people who don't have three number ones in a career. Just,
True.
just
True.
what was, were you guys like pinching yourselves? Like, is this really happening to us?
Exactly. Yeah, no, it was forget about it. You know what I mean? Like, it was such a pleasure to meet David Townsend. He was so down to earth. Brothers out there with the Isley brothers. His dad is, Ed Townsend, and he was so down to earth. He was looking at me like I was the star. I was the star. This is before we started writing together, just
Mm-hmm.
because of when he saw what I was doing in my hometown, and that was like very wild. He was so humble, and it resonated with me because I like that. He was so real. And David Conley, just talented. He's legally blind. Okay,
Oh,
and
I didn't know
yet
that.
he's running the board. And yet, yeah, he plays saxophone, flute, bass synthesizer, drum program. He produces. He's a bad man. You know what I mean? Townsend, same thing. He could play. He can program the drums. He played keyboards. He played guitar, and obviously drum program. And they had a little. They could sing a little bit too. On a few of the songs like "You Are My Everything," they're singing background, along with a brother named we call him Durkee, another bad brother that could sing that we lost a year or two ago. Very soulful, and he actually was part writer on the song "All I Want Is You." Wow, if you can hear his demo, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah.
yeah, man, it was we were kind of living in it's almost like you're living in a dream. You know what I mean? Because you're living your dream, and it doesn't get any better than that. I couldn't even sleep. I couldn't even sleep because once it's working, I try to teach others that are they're coming up behind me a lot of times. You have so much creativity, and you lay down here, you have another idea. You can't sleep, and it could get out of control. So I couldn't wait till the day actually because it was affecting my sleep. I couldn't wait till the day that I could turn it on and turn it off. And that
Mm-hmm.
day did come. Uh, but you just want to do more and more and more and more, and you don't ever want it to stop.
And you, like I said, you've been in this business a very long time, and people tend to forget that music is so easily accessible now. It wasn't like that back then.
Right.
Like folks had to go. Like I'm 44, so I'm in the last generation of kids who used to use their allowance money or their part-time job money to
Right.
go to the record store. I mean, we were buying CDs then, but back then you guys were buying cassettes and vinyls. Just but
Exactly.
but with the way that music is so easily accessible now, just what is your take on it? Do you think, I mean, because you said you want to, when you mentor younger artists that they have to strike while the iron is hot. Do you think that, the music industry is better off now with the accessibility, or do you think, there might need to be some regulations, or, what's your overall feeling in the music industry in 2025 as opposed to 85 when you were getting started?
Right. It's a new world now. It's a new world. And the thing is with young people, because they grew up with this technology, they are they are able to adapt pretty simple because it's the norm for them. You know what I mean? So they can adapt to the technology pretty easy, and you can actually get your music out there and on these platforms, and you don't have to be a big star. You don't have to have a lot of money. The toughest part is the promotion and the marketing. That's where it gets interesting, and it's a little harder, but it's possible. Lots of things are possible now for younger artists to at least be seen. You know what I mean? Worst case, they can at least be seen, and you never know. What could come out of you just being at the right place when somebody happens to make to click on it, you know what I mean, or happen to see you on some of these platforms that are available to everyone, which that's kind of cool, you know. But it is difficult because you're still dealing with the huge industry, and they pretty much, you know, still have all the control and the big, you know, the big control, the big promotion. They could get your artists on television, and then some of these platforms that you're not going to just show up on, you know, the Tonight Show or whatever.
Right.
That has to, you know, that has to come. You either get lucky, you know, which that's rare, or you have to have the right connections. Still, which it's interesting, you know.
And I wanted to ask, you know, about how you guys, you, Dave, and Pick work together. Like, what was your writing and creative process like? I mean, I know I joke whenever I ask journalists about this, and I ask coaches about this because I'm a sports reporter in my day job.
Okay.
I always say, Colonel Sanders has his 11 herbs and spices. So I always try to, you know, try to figure out what, you know, your 11 herbs and spices are if you're a coach or you're a songwriter. So from you guys' perspective, you know, what was you guys, you know, approach to writing a song?
Well, the initial thing was, first of all, I can write a whole song. I don't need any help writing a song. I don't need to collaborate, right? I don't need to collaborate. But when you do collaborate, you're getting different energy and different perspectives from others, which is fun. So when I went to Jersey, I'm hearing tracks that don't sound like my tracks. I like those tracks that I'm hearing. It's different than mine. You know, you can get stale with your stuff, and you can learn from others. So initially, they were just hitting me with different tracks. As soon as I hear something I like, I grab the pen, I grab the pad, and I get quiet. And I just start, you know, between that and you grab, back in the day, it was a dictaphone. Now it's an iPhone, you know, and I would sing ideas inside there as well. Sometimes you just freestyle throughout the whole vibe until, you know, and you go back and play back and you see what you like. So there's a number of ways that that I would approach the songwriting aspect when I was collaborating with my boys. And so Pick, for an example, and you can go back and check out, there's a song called We're All Searching. And is that on the, it might be on the, I can't remember now if it was on the, it probably was on the third album on 3D. It probably was on that now. I can't remember now. But anyway, you check out We're All Searching. David Conley, he can also come up with his own stuff too. We all can do our own everything. He happened to come up with this weird track, and I'm listening to that thing, and I'm like, give me that, and I'm out, right? Because this track took me to another place. It took me somewhere where I hadn't gone, and I knew that I could pull out something special, totally different, not your normal surface. That's David Big Conley, right?
Okay.
And I loved it. And so when you hear it, when you go back and check that out, you'll know what I'm talking about. I basically just went on a little journey, you know what I mean, with that vibe. So ultimately, each one of us could come up with a vibe. If we wanted to collaborate, I mainly collaborated with them. I would most likely come up with whole tracks, whole stuff myself, but I would collaborate with them in their tracks, you know, most of the time. And like Townsend came up with the track for Closer Than Friends. And when I heard that bad boy, it took me someplace. And I just basically started writing. And so everybody's different. Sometimes people come up with one verse. Sometimes people come up with a hook. Check this out. And a beat. Like Townsend came up with Happy. He was vibing in the studio and he was just singing, only you can make me happy. And he's just keyboards and him. Happy. That's all he had. Only you can make me happy. And he was singing like that because he sang soft, you know. Yeah. Man, I heard that, and when I heard that, I felt like I was hearing collard greens and mashed potatoes and um, potato salad. It was
Hmm.
definitely, I was just feeling soul and our soul. Um, and then I started writing, you
Yeah.
know, I started writing.
That song actually is a cookout favorite for a lot of people, so I get where you're going with that. And I have a favorite Surface song that I have to ask you about
Yeah.
because I'm from the Philadelphia area. We had a Quiet Storm DJ, the late Tony Brown. He used to play this every Thursday, and
Okay.
I fell in love with this song when I was like 18 or 19, and it has not left my mind for
Yeah.
25 years.
Wow.
Give me your love. I love that. Give her your love. I
Give her
love
your
that
love.
song so
Wow.
much. Like,
Wow.
what's the story behind that one?
Same thing, man. Same thing. Townsend had a vibe. That's Townsend's vibe. Same guy that came up with the vibe for Happy. Same guy that came up with the vibe for Closer Than Friends. You know, that's Townsend's vibe, man. It's like California. He's it's different. Man, I heard that thing, and that was it. All I heard was the music, and then I went to work. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Love it, love it. Yeah, no, that's yeah, special, special. Uh, Townsend, he's got colors, man. He's got colors. There's colors in there. And once
right.
I hear them colors, man, and that 808, I think there was 808 on there. You just go into that space, man, and have fun. You start painting that picture, you know. Uh, and when I'm writing, I want to paint a picture where you could kind of create your own in your mind when you're hearing it, and you could see it, how that picture looks on, to you based on the vibe and the words and what have you. So yeah, man, that's a special one, you know.
And
Yeah.
and when you talk about songs like when you're singing, always be there. She needs someone she can hold on to. Like you don't get people singing songs like that in 2025,
Mm.
and it's unfortunate because I mean, as a child of the 80s and 90s, I love the Quiet Storm. So I
Yes,
mean, talking to you is like talking to somebody it's just like an honor and a privilege. But I just want to know, like, do you think that we'll ever get back to a day where there's a romance element to R&B? Because I don't hear that on the radio today.
yeah. Yeah, I think so. I think so. Maybe there has to be something that kind of breaks through. You know what I mean? Sometimes you can't keep everything down. Um, I think so. Again, you have so many different outlets now where you could put music. There's a song on an album we did out of Japan, and it's called uh, Quiet Storm.
Yeah.
Turn up the quiet storm where the music is. You gotta check that out, man. Oh my gosh, because we got the thunder in the background, and when that
Yeah.
track comes on, again, you might want to check that out. It's called Quiet Storm. Um, and I thought that it would catch on. It would even, catch in the United States. Um, and of course, there's another one. That album was called Love Zone. So, that's another one. So, yeah, I think it will, but I think it may take it. A lot of time, it takes one to kind of stand out, and
Right.
then folks may try to emulate that and get back to some of that because that's we need it. You know what I mean? And that's also the reason why I'm um I'm here, and we're starting to drop some things. I've got a lot of stuff. I think I did like 3 albums of Bernard Jackson / Surface style stuff as well. You know what I
Right.
mean? So all that stuff will soon be available to the world, and there's a lot of what you're talking about in there. You know, uh,
Yeah.
so a lot of music coming, and hopefully people are ready for that. And if they were waiting, and some folks already know about it, some of that stuff too, some of that original stuff. A lot of them don't know about the tribute stuff. I've got a lot of tribute stuff,
Yeah.
Nat King Cole, you know. I love it. You know.
Yeah. So I do a word association game with all of my guests. So before we get out of here, I want to play a quick game of that with you. I'm gonna name an artist or name a song or an album, and you give me the first word that comes to mind.
Okay. Okay.
All right. Okay. We'll start with a great one. Stevie Wonder.
Um. Uh. Oh wow. Songs in the key of life, baby.
Yeah.
I'm just saying. High school. That was that. That's it. I'm done with that. When you say Stevie Wonder, it takes me to that because it was a magical time, and that was a magical album. You know what I mean? And it's like timeless. So I'm sorry, I gave you more than a word, but
No, that's no problem. Luther Vandross.
a master. Wow. You know,
Whitney Houston.
princess. You know, wow. You know, she's right. Come on.
Yeah.
I'll always
Um,
love.
September by Earth, Wind and Fire.
Yeah, I did an Earth, Wind, and Fire album too, bro. Oh my God. You know, these are masters. I mean, I don't know, what do you say? These are the giants. You know, you're talking giants. I tributed the giants. You know, I'm not done. But
Right.
yeah. I got a version of September too. All
All
right.
right. All right. Last one. Surface.
Home. You know?
Yep.
Oh man. Yeah, I miss my boy too, man. You know. Yeah. Yeah.
All right. So, ladies and gentlemen, we have had Bernard Jackson on here. Bernard, tell people where they can find you. You know, where they can find. You know, if you have a social media site or a website where they can, catch up with you. You know, catch up with the music, and I know you said you got some more stuff coming. So let the people know where they can find you.
Yeah. Bernard Jackson Official, bernardjacksonofficial.com. I think that's it. Let me just double check
No
because
problem. No problem.
get confused with the dots and stuff like that. But and just go to like the iTunes and the Apple Music and type in Bernard Jackson, and my face changes from time to time. I gain a little, I lose a little.
Yeah.
I'm human here, but uh, let me just double check. I believe it's bernardjacksonofficial.com, and that's one site where you could get a sneak peek on some of the tribute stuff that I've been doing. I think there's a little Luther up there, there's a little Marvin. I mean, I did stylistics too, which nobody's used to hearing me do that style. You know what I mean? Of course, forget about some of the other stuff like the John Denver and Neil Diamond, because I go down all Elvis Presley. I go down a whole lot of rabbit holes and having a lot of fun. Um, I was supposed to look for to make sure that bernardjacksonofficial.com. If it's not that, then it's bernardjackson.official, but I think that's wrong. I think it's bernardjacksonofficial.com. That's one of the places. And I'm sure we're going to have other websites as well. But for now, that would be the best place to go and holler at me. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
We're working. And I'm also doing some stuff with Gladys Knight. And so let's just throw that out there.
Oh, holy crap! I forgot to ask about that. What's it? I mean, she's one of my. I mean, Gladys Knight is a family favorite in this household, in my mom and my parents' household. What is it like working with the Empress of Soul?
Man, it's surreal. I mean, you're talking about the Empress, okay? All right, and amazing. That's what it's like. You're there with the giant. I can't say enough about how much I love her. Um, you know, I believe she's really the one that discovered Michael Jackson. So now here I am. And, she's also managing me as well. A lot of folks don't know that. We've been putting in a lot of work. Okay. And we've got a song that we're going to be dropping shortly called When the World Falls Down. So look out for that too. Gladys is amazing. Okay. Love her.
And ladies and gentlemen, and that's going to do it for this edition of On the Groove Line. Bernard Jackson, we thank you so much for your time. You know, you've educated me. You've given me a ton of great stories. Like this is why I wanted to bring you on, because I know that a lot of old school folks don't have a lot of outlets to talk about this. And as someone who is like an old soul, I mean, people might not think 44 is old, but when I get up out of this chair in a few minutes, my knees are going to be yelling at me. So I feel old, but but, but I know I'm still young to a lot of people. But
you are young. You are young, because I've got a son that's 45. So you are young, and my mother would say you get old by yourself. Okay. And, so at the end of the day, man, you're just a baby, man.
yeah, but I mean, again, I respect and honor the old school. That's why this channel exists, and I am eternally grateful for you to take a time out of your busy schedule to talk to me, and greatly appreciate it. So thank you for coming on.
Man, appreciate you, man, and I'll be back.
Yes, sir.
All right, man.
Looking forward to it. And that's going to do it for this ride on the Groove Line. Greatly appreciate y'all as always. The contact information for myself and Bernard will be in the description below. Be sure to like and comment on this video. Let us know what you liked about, what you thought about our interview. I mean, Bernard dropped a lot of gems, so you can take your pick here. So, be sure to and don't forget to subscribe to this channel. We're trying to get to 500 subs. So, quicker we get to that, the more great interviews like this we can have. So thank you guys for riding with us on the Groove Line. And until the next time we ride, may you find the groove, or may the groove find you.